Celtics Stuff Live.
Welcome to Celtics Stuff Live on the CLNS Media Network, the leading online provider of audio and video coverage for the Boston Celtics. Before we even talk about tonight's show or today's show, I'm going to tell you that the next time we come on, it's going to be the playoffs. We'll have one game in the books from next weekend, and this is our final regular season show. The Celtics sitting at 54 wins with two normally what I would say easier competition on the docket and feeling pretty good about 56 wins, but I think they're going to rest them and get them ready for the postseason, get that bench some run, give those guys some minutes. And as you know, by now, it's been well debated and well discussed. Kyrie Irving not going to be available for the postseason. And you got to think too, John, that means that Gordon Hayward, even if there was a shot that he could play, and even if the Celtics push a little bit deeper, that maybe they're just going to go ahead and let that one ride anyway. Everybody's going to say, I told you so. Oh, wow, that's great news. But, I mean, you know, you and I have been talking about him coming back and holding out hope. And, you know, I think if there was a healthy Kyrie, there still was a shot that he might put up a few later in the postseason. But I think even if they make it that far this season, they're not going to gamble.
Dude, the moment that they announced that, or I don't know if they announced, but one of the, I don't know, it might have been Abby Chin, you know, said on Twitter that that Gordon Hayward's dog had ACL surgery. I mean, I think once that happened, it wasn't just Hayward. I think it was that we had reached a point of no return for the Celtics playoff injury. There was nothing that really mattered at that point anymore. And then Yabu, of course, now Yabusele was held out of Sunday's game against against the Hawks due to a knee. They're going to do an MRI. I mean, look, keep him as far away from this team as possible. It's like when guys have the flu and they send them home. They're almost at that point where it's like, look, we'd really like you to come back and play, but we feel like something catastrophic might happen to any one of us coming up here. So just stay home. Like, just stay away from the team. Don't let anything else happen. Keep going through your rehab, but just don't get near us because obviously we are like poison right now.
They really are. They're the most jinxed team. And what's crazy is you get younger because you're hoping that you don't have to play through these kinds of maladies. We know the season's a long season. We know it's 82 games, but only Al Horford's the real, I mean, really over 30. I guess Baines is over 32, but for the most part, this is an extremely young squad, and yet the number of games missed due to injury is really ludicrous. Some of them really funky, like all of Marcus Smart's injuries this season. And then you look at Jaylen Brown and the Al Horford concussions, and you know, look at the weird way that Gordon Hayward landed. Like, these are not your typical, they're not wear and tear injuries. Now, Kyrie's is a wear and tear injury to some extent when you consider the fact that it's related to a previous surgery. So maybe that one is the one asterisk, like, hey, this is a known on a younger player potentially. And it sounds like this procedure is going to really eliminate the long-term concerns with this. So that's fantastic news heading into next season, and knowing that there's going to be a contract year for Kyrie coming up where the Celtics are going to have some difficult decisions there. But if they can feel 100% confident that the injuries in the past, then hey, you know, you're going to sign them for long and big money. But with that aside, everybody else's injury is just freakish and bizarre. It's, to your point, you know, it's worse than the flu. It's more like being possessed by demons.
Right. Yeah. DNP. I mean, yeah. Needed exorcism. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. I mean, it's just, I just laughed at my phone. And I got the, you know, the message from, it might have been Steeple Pet, and I'm like, I was just laughing. Yabu is my boy. You know, all this good stuff that Yabu's done. And I'm like, this is, of course Yabu would be hurt and, you know, miss the last two games. We actually could have an opportunity in the playoffs, and he could be a part of this. And instead, you know, of course, this is the way it goes. But, you know, I think that this is a team we all knew, as you know, this is they're going to get as much as they can out of this. There's going to be a lot of valuable experiences, and there's going to be a real amount that guys like Jaylen Brown and Tatum are going to be able to put in the back of their minds when they're called to do more next year and the year after and the year after. So it's really going to be a valuable experience that once they're put in these situations here coming up in the next couple of years, they're going to be able to come back from that when the stakes are going to be higher. Because I don't think any of us think they're going to get to the conference finals at this point. I don't think any of us think they're going to get to the finals at this point. But to be able to be in that playoff experience, be able to experience, to have that around you, understand the gravity of every possession, every opportunity that you have, I think that's going to be great for those guys. But let's be honest, it's all about next year at this point. They're going to do the best they can here in April and early May. And then we're going to get everybody healthy and run it back next year once Kyrie Irving's back with a healthy knee and Gordon Hayward's back with a healthy ankle and, Kawhi Leonard.
Slipping it right in there. I like that. I was just going to say all these young rookies, and second-year players and third-year players are all rising to the occasion and getting a lot of experience so that, next season, that depth concern that you had for this year would certainly be alleviated. And instead, you just went and traded all of our picks and all of our young players. You're going to sing a totally different tune if it's Tatum and then we've got another injury guy on our squad that can't stay healthy. That's my one thing here is we've already got the omen. I just don't think you don't go tempting fate or playing with the devil with the the Kawhi trade. I would love him, but what did he play? Like 8 games this year? Like,
9.
dude.
He played 9.
He played 9, but you get what I'm saying. Like, at that point, you're just like, all right, we got 3 great players, and now we don't have any of the young players, and somehow those 3 players can't stay healthy. And remember, we've had this discussion about that previous big 3 that you and I kind of grew up on with Celtics Stuff Live, KG, Paul, and Ray. And even you can throw a little Rondo in there at some point along that line. And so we went through that, and it was impossible for them to pay those salaries, round out the bench. They were handcuffed to a certain extent. And on top of that, they had to deal with injuries. I mean, Rondo's arm bending backwards is just freakish, kind of like, Gordon Hayward this season. But KG, I mean, the injuries and the wear and tear on his body was real. That was a real struggle. And even when he came back, and you see him in these years with the Nets and with the Timberwolves, there was something missing there. And he wasn't the guy we had in 2008. And even then, he fought back in 10, but he really started to tail off after that. And Paul, I think, was probably the one player that the entire time he was in green was surviving it, but it's always a concern. It's always a concern. And so there's a part of me that's like, even though those 3 players are so young, we could still be battling with a Blake Griffin-like scenario with any one of those guys year after year after year.
I think it's a little bit different, the difference between the 2008 crew and this crew in that just in the age. I mean, you've got Kyrie Irving coming here at 25, now 26 years old. Kawhi's 26. Gordon Hayward's going to be 28. I mean, it's a younger core. I mean, remember, Ray Allen was just on just this side of 32. So there's a very different dynamic, I think, in terms of the age that they're coming in.
Does
here.
anybody even really know what's going on with Kawhi? I mean, I'm with you on that. And
right.
I kind of noted that at the beginning of that, making that comparison, was that they're a younger crew, but you go trade for a guy that nobody can figure out why he only played 9 games, even though I thought it was 8. You trade for a guy who nobody can figure out why he played 9 games. I just think it's like the flu. You know what I mean? You don't double down and go hang out with everybody who has the cold when you have the flu. You know what I mean?
I think I hear what you're saying. I think that's more of a karmic issue maybe though than anything we can ascribe to, regular science and math and things. But you're right. I mean, there is that aspect to it. I think the other piece though is,
I'm not saying everybody else is going to get the injury bug from Kawhi.
Well,
I'm saying that you are putting all your eggs in the Kawhi basket because of what it's going to take to trade for him.
I don't
think
think
you
so.
could still wind up having an issue with injuries. So you think he's going to come with the cheap?
I don't. Well, I think relatively cheap. And when I say
Jaylen
why
Brown
I say
cheap?
that,
Like, you're telling me I'm going to have to lose my guy, right?
You're going to
After he
lose your
sets a
guy.
career high 32 points, I'm going to lose my guy.
You're losing your guy.
No,
You're
I'm
losing
not doing it.
Rozier.
Not
You're
doing it.
losing the Kings pick, but you're getting back a top 3 MVP candidate.
Not doing it. I know. Paul Flannery wants to do it. I've seen all the
I
articles
would do
out
it.
there. Everybody's like, I'm in. I'm telling you, I'm not in.
I wouldn't do it with Tatum in that package, but I would do it with Brown.
Now I'm going to smack you. Now I'm just going to smack you. Because I know, oh, it's all positional. Don't even. It has nothing to do with positional lines up. It has everything to do with the fact that you love Tatum and you think he's better than Brown.
He is. Yes, you're right. And, so, no, I mean, I think in terms of fit, I think what Tatum does would fit better next to, Kawhi and in that mix. But I think the issue is, I think part of the problem that the Spurs are going to face is that Kawhi can be a free agent next summer, just like, Kyrie can. And if that happens, what does that do to his market? I mean, obviously he's sat out the whole season. So there's going to have to be a whole lot of back channel stuff here about like why he's healthy, why you should give us the full amount, why it should be different for you than it is for us. It's a weird situation. There's stuff about why, he hasn't played because he's trying to get a better shoe contract from Jordan Brand. There are a lot of shades here of the Kyrie situation. There was a lot of stuff about Kyrie's dad, and Kyrie's dad doesn't like the situation in Cleveland, and it became an issue between Kyrie and how he was being sunned effectively by LeBron.
But Kyrie
I
still
think the
played.
same thing's going wrong.
For the most part, he still played. Right? I mean, he demanded
absolutely.
to leave, but he still played. That's where I'm super questionable on the shades of Kawhi. And real quick, a reminder to all of our listeners, you can follow Celtics Stuff Live on Twitter at CSL_tweet live. You can follow me at CSL_Justin. John is at CSL_Duke. And the entire CLNS Media Network is at CLNS Media. Facebook.com/CLNS fans. And don't forget to download the CLNS Media app for iOS and Android. Simply search CLNS Media in your app marketplace. And finally, the YouTube channel. You can find snippets of us. You can find high-definition, full-length locker room interviews. You've got the Garden Report. You've got the Round Table. So much content on that YouTube channel. Make sure you check it out. And I'm sure there'll be lots of Kawhi talk because, first off, it's like a tongue twister, dude. Kyrie and Kawhi, that's going to flub me up so much on next year's show. Like, it wouldn't even work out for me. But I'm going to be super angry if they trade Jaylen Brown. I especially from the way he lit it up from beyond the arc. It's his improvement scale combined with his enormous athleticism. I mean, he's got that fadeaway that he's starting to work now. He's knocking down three-pointers. That was something that nobody thought he could do a year and a half ago, right? They were like, no, his shooting is horrible in college, and, the odds that he'll become a good shooter in the NBA. And he's still a little out of control every once in a while, and there's still some things. But defensively, I mean, he's right up there with some of the best. And we've already heard other players around the league claim that. So just as his intelligence grows, his experience grows, and if he keeps going on this trajectory with offense, I really want to see him next year. And if he goes and gets traded and he lights it up with the Spurs in year 3, and we've got a Kawhi who doesn't play and then goes to contract, my head's going to explode.
It could happen. I mean, look, first of all, we got to agree that he's going to get traded. I think there's a lot of doubt about that. A lot of people look and say, look, it's the Spurs. This doesn't happen with the Spurs. They'll work it out. But you don't just sit out all but 9 games of a season if everything's hunky dory and things are going to work out. The players themselves, many of them are very angry with him, feeling like he's leaving them, kind of leave him in the lurch and leave him on the side. There's that aspect to it. And then on the other end, like you said, you've got this rising star who's really seemingly making all the right moves, improving wildly. If he weren't standing next to Jason Tatum, he would be, I think the apple of everybody's eye here in Boston. And meanwhile, he's kind of in the shadows, to be honest with you. I really think, Jaylen does well, but it's he doesn't star in the same way that Tatum does. He doesn't have that pretty jump shot. He doesn't have these gliding, James Worthy-like finishes to the hoop with these, go-go gadget, Inspector Gadget arms. I mean, those are very visible, obvious things that you see. Now the playmaking that Tatum's doing kind of with the ball as a point guard. I mean, I like what Jalen's done, and I'm not a hater by any stretch, but it's hard for Tate. What I'm saying is, I'm not trying to take down Brown, but what I'm saying is it's hard for him to shine in this environment next to a guy whose gifts are so obvious and so pleasing to the eye. And it's a tough
He's
spot
smooth.
for him.
He's absolutely smooth, but Jalen does have that out of the gym athleticism. And I look at them as a package deal, and I always have. It's just, I want to see those two become the future of the franchise. The only concern I really have is that those rookie deals eventually end. And then, who knows how much they're going to want on the market, and how hard is it going to be for the Celtics to keep them when they've got money committed to the Horfords, et cetera. And sometimes trade is your best way out of that. You consolidate, you bring in the talent, et cetera, et cetera. But, honestly, I'd rather wait until into next season some more and let a Brown grow. And then if you're really going to trade, make a trade for somebody like Davis. That to me is an impact in the lineup more than Kawhi. And I'm not trying to down Kawhi, and I know everything that he gives. I just mean from the standpoint of, this is a league that caters to guards. So what Kawhi would give you, it might be easier to find that if you're getting the same kind of dominant presence at another position where the guy's got range, he can rebound, he can defend. I'd rather gamble the dice on some of these guys. Now I know that Kawhi is presumably in this debate coming at a much lesser cost, but if he does come at a lesser cost, you still got contract issues as you try to sign other guys that are rising. And, a Kyrie, Davis and, Gordon Hayward rotation, it's still more exciting and more tantalizing to me, and more balanced, because you've got the 1, the 5, and then you got the wing, and then you just put in complementary pieces in between.
I know that's, if you had to pick, do you pick the 6'10", 6'11" guy who can really be your small ball 5 or your 4, in a number of different situations? Would you rather have that guy who is an MVP candidate, or do you have the 6'8" guy who is arguably the best defensive player in the league who's an MVP candidate? I mean, you're really geez, can you go wrong? I don't know if maybe you can, maybe you would prefer the big guy over the other given what you already have. But again, it's not a Sophie's choice, but it's a good choice to have. This is a team, as good as this team is right now, we're banking on development. We're banking on things that don't currently exist. Now, health is maybe a bit as another variable in all this.
It's one that we should have been able to bank on. It's one that we should have been able to bank on a lot better than we have. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I guess you're right. What you buy in having more flexibility financially, you're giving up in the fact that you don't have a sure thing in young players. But if they can overextend themselves beyond that contract value, which Brown surely already is, which Tatum surely already is, does that make up for having an MVP candidate who can lock down LeBron James or Kevin Durant? Or now we've seen Brown be able to do both those things on a limited scale. We haven't seen him do it over a 7-game series. There may be an opportunity for him to do that.
That's kind of my point, though, is that he has the opportunity to grow into what Kawhi was. And remember, Kawhi wasn't a high draft pick. Nobody thought he was going to become that. And a lot of it's work ethic, and it's the things that Brown has. And you cannot deny the fact that, again, that trajectory where Brown just shows continuous improvement. So you have to think that as long as that continues and he heads into year 3, and it's also about opportunity as well. He's a complementary piece, and so he's focused on defense, and yet his offensive game has improved dramatically since last season, and he's going to continue to get those minutes. But my point is this: with Davis being the guy that you're more likely to give up is I just think it's harder to find the Anthony Davis piece, right? I think to the point about Kawhi, yes, is he way better than Brown? Of course he is. When he's playing, 100%. Him not playing versus Brown playing, that's obvious too. So, I just don't understand or don't know, and we won't know if the Kawhi thing is kind of a long-term deal. But Davis comes with an injury history too. So you don't avoid injuries altogether, and I understand that. I'm just saying the big man and the big man talent, it's harder to come by in this league. And that's the reason why I'd give up more pieces for somebody like Davis versus gambling on a Kawhi when you may have somebody that's Kawhi light and yet you retain the depth of the roster when you just might need it.
But I think that's the issue to me, is that the Kawhi light versus actually having Kawhi, right? And you got to pay for that. Kawhi is going to be a guy who's going to be extended at max money next summer, and it's not going to be for the faint of heart. It's not going to be the supermax if he's traded, but it's going to be a big time deal that on the par of what Kyrie's going to get. So you're going to be devoting some serious money there. But the issue to me, the league, it's very easy to be a pretty good player. I say easy as somebody who's 6'2" and can't get rim anymore. But the difference between the good to the really great is far. You can change games with the difference of having that one guy who has that gravity to him. And I don't think that's what Jalen's got to do. Jalen has now gone from somebody who you weren't sure wasn't even going to contribute, maybe just as a live body, probably, 18 months ago, to now he's going to have to carry some offensive role. He's been able to do these 32-point games. He has that within him. Does he have the ability to be a consistent offensive performer that the team can rely on? I'm just talking in the 15, 16, 17-point range. If he can be that guy, good. But can he get to the 25-point range? That kind of mid-20s where this is a star player, you build your offense around him, and he's going to hold the guy on the other end. That's where he has the potential for. But can he get there? And that's where Kawhi is. And if he can get there, then he's in that MVP territory. But we're not quite there yet. But to go to your earlier
it's so
point,
early,
your latter point, though, you're absolutely right. Well, it is early, but the Celtics they're in a position where they can win an NBA championship next year. Can you wait and hope that you're going to get that from Jaylen Brown? Can you wait for that? Or can you get the guy that is buying low on the market? Anthony Davis may never come to market. That may never be a possibility for the Boston Celtics. But Kawhi is there. Do you wait for the bird, get the bird in hand, or you wait for the two in the bush? It may not be.
You wait because Davis is healthy and we don't know what Kawhi's future is other than even if he's healthy, it's a big contract suck next off season. That's my thought on it. And I'm with you. He's still young and you feel like you can buy low and, get a big payoff and whatnot. But I'm telling you, if he doesn't re-sign next summer or he doesn't play next year, that's a huge gamble, and it could be extremely frustrating for the franchise after they put all this together. And what if Kyrie suffers setbacks while that's all going on next year? Keep in mind, and this will be the end of this part of the conversation, we'll be into the postseason, we'll have lots of time to talk about the Kawhi thing, but just keep in mind that to date, and it will be true again this year, the Celtics have improved their win total under every single season with Brad Stevens. The players continue to improve. It's very rare we see players take a step back in his under his tutelage, especially some of these younger guys. He's always gotten more out of the roster year after year. At some point, we'll hit a leveling off. At 54 wins sitting today with a potential for 56 and a likely 55, the last thing you want to do is start taking steps backward, because you took away some of these youth and the young assets that this team has. And the other thing is they need some of those future picks to continue doing things like they're doing now to round out the roster when they are paying big salaries. So to mortgage some of the youth now and mortgage some of that roster upside potential flexibility for the future is also could be handcuffing them on some contracts that might not return on value depending on health. So going to tell you about our newest sponsor, Simple Contacts. If you wear contacts and you know how annoying it is to have to get a prescription year after year just to be able to buy more contacts, it used to drive me nuts. I would go online to buy contacts and they're like, hey, where's your prescription? Well, if I got to go in to the store or go into the eye doctor and get a new prescription just to buy more contacts, why am I going to do it online? Well, Simple Contacts is changing all of that by using technology to make renewing your prescription and buying contacts super, well, simple. And here's how it works. Using your phone or your computer, and I've done this already. I got mine literally today in the mail. Really quick process, very easy process. Using your phone or computer, you take the Simple Contacts vision test. That's the key right there. In 5 minutes, literally from anywhere, and then a real doctor will review your test in 24 hours. You get your new prescription and boom, a fresh supply of brand new lenses on the way right to your door. You don't have to go in and make the annoying appointment when you know your prescription hasn't changed. You can verify that your prescription hasn't changed by taking the simple eye test. You don't have to be in the waiting rooms. You don't have to pay too much. The prices at Simple Contacts are absolutely fantastic, and they bring the doctor's office to you wherever you are, whenever you need it. And if you're like me, I travel all the time for work. I'm very rarely home, and even if I schedule a doctor's appointment with the eye doctor, my chances of making that appointment with the schedule changes that I face every day is very low. So this was just an amazing experience for me. Simple Contacts offers every brand of lenses. Their prices are unbeatable. Some prescriptions start at just $20, and the lenses are super competitive. Shipping is free, and you're going to get $30 off your first Simple Contacts order. All you have to do is go to simplecontacts.com/CLNS, or just go enter the code CLNS at checkout. I just want to mention, though, that this isn't a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam. You still need those occasionally, but it is the most convenient way to renew a prescription and reorder your contacts if your vision hasn't changed, just like we talked about at the beginning. And again, check out Simple Contacts. Get $30 off by going to simplecontacts.com/CLNS, or just enter CLNS at the checkout in the special code section. Give it a try. You will thank me later. So, John, as we talk about our vision, what's our vision for the postseason? Is Jabari Bird going to get some minutes in this first round? Because I certainly think he's earned it. Boy, his athleticism is way better than advertised, and he's a hustler. And you know us Boston boys, we all love guys who hustle.
Well, it's kind of interesting there. In the game against the Hawks, you know, you had Mike was kind of singing his praises during the game and the first half, and then they came back from break and Mike said, well, you know, we found out that actually he can't play in the playoffs. So, you know, there was kind of some dialing it back, and Scal's like, yeah, that's right, you can't do da-da-da-da. You know, basically what it comes down to, the Celtics have to cut somebody.
Did I miss that?
They're going to let him do it.
Oh, they have to cut somebody for him to play in the playoffs.
Right. So,
okay.
And then re-sign him to a new deal.
All right, goodbye, Nader.
Well, you know, the impression was left during the game is there's no way that that's very unlikely that this is going to happen, that he's going to play. It's almost like, no, it's not going to happen. I'll tell you, as a fan watching it, it's insane that they would keep Nader over Jabari Bird. Insane. It is insane. I mean, it makes no sense.
It's so clear and obvious. The way, I mean, you even almost have to look at that Jonathan, who's the guy? Gibson. You almost have to look at Gibson over Nader in a way. Just
Absolutely.
The way he came in his first game and knocked down 3 3-pointers, like he was just like, yeah, I've been here before. And that's the problem. Nader's a little slow of foot, has a little trouble turning the corner, can't keep his man in front of him not to turn the corner. And we've seen it all along. We said it at the beginning of the year. People were like, I think Nader's going to get a lot of run this season. I said, I don't think so. And it's not that I don't like Nader. I actually kind of like him. but it just was one of those clear and obvious things when he gets out on the floor. He's just not somebody who's going to make like even minimal impacts, that are really strong, right? Like infrequent impacts that really make a difference. He's not that guy. He might be kind of a steady guy. I'm trying to think of, there's been like, the Brandon Hunters of the world, you know what I mean? That have kind of come in every once in a while and give you a few steady minutes, but they never hang on to the roster. What you want for that position or that spot, you want a guy who's going to come in like Gibson did, or somebody like Jabari Bird has. They're making statements when they're out on the floor. And can they do that against, others, like starting elite? Probably not. I'm not trying to say that Jabari Bird's all of a sudden going to earn his way into the starting lineup or anything, but if you can come in off the bench with energy and make an impact, you're the guy. And 9 times out of 10, Nader's not able to accomplish that.
That's right. He, whether it's defensively, whether it's offensively, he has shown last year when he was Rookie of the Year in the D League, and even before that in the Summer League, he showed a real capacity to be able to fill in the little spots, make things work. And I thought there was some real hope that he would be able to translate that. But every time he's gotten the call at the big level, at the Boston level, and basically playing up with the big leagues here this season, he just has not been able to show, never mind consistently, but even flashes of being able to play on that level. He's, kind of the prototypical 4A guy. You see that all the time in baseball where they're okay. They look great at the AAA level, but they're just not good enough for the pros. And it feels like Nader right now is in that spot. He's got to find a way to get up to either shoot better or something, because right now it's just not working for him.
He's such a Chinese league candidate. That's really where, he can go and dominate in a league like that and make some cash. That's really, and honestly, the only reason guys like Nader hang on in the league is because they're holding out hopes for the NBA run because of the affiliation with the club. But, if I'm Nader's agent, I'm saying, let's take it overseas, buddy. Let's go make you some money. You're healthy. You're playing at a really good level, just below NBA action. Let's go make some coin.
Yeah, not here. Most importantly, not here right now, because it's just not happening. And, I think Bird, whether it's his ability to run the baseline, whatever it is, he's got that Avery Bradley area down where he's going backdoor. He's attacking almost in a Tony Allen way too, and kind of, attacking the glass and attacking in that kind of way. I just love what I see from that guy. He's a live wire. He had kind of a tough year with the back injury, didn't really kind of star the way I thought he might, up in Maine, but in Summer League, he looked great. Preseason, he looked great. I think it kind of does throw things off a little bit for the Celtics, but it makes a lot of sense. Let Nader go, bring Bird in. He just fills the need that they have, and Nader just has not been able to show well, and it's just
they need guard play. That's the other thing. They're thin at the guard. Bird's got that athleticism. He's an explosive athlete. He finishes great around the rim. And that's really, we haven't really seen him take a lot of shots. And I think that's probably where his shortcoming is. He plays solid defense and he's a total athlete, but to shoot threes and some of that in today's modern NBA game, that's where he just isn't quite going to wind up making a big statement on the NBA level. But that's, again, where we come back. That's why you thought a guy like Nader was going to hang on, because you thought he was going to shoot the lights out from beyond the arc, which he had been doing in the D League and was known for. And yet he really hasn't shot anything like exceptional from beyond the arc at all. And his first few stints, it wasn't very good. So then you're thinking, all right, we need guards in the postseason. We need athletes. We need guys who can run. We need guys who can be explosive in spot minutes coming off the bench. And that's exactly, Bird's like a perfect perennial bench player, like a Walter McCarty style guy for the modern day, Celtics. I know Walter was more of a three-point shooter. It wasn't the athleticism that dominated, but you get my point. Kind of knew his role, stayed right in that slot, contributed for a long time. I could see a guy like Jabari Bird doing that, especially if he can just figure out how to knock down some open threes when called upon, right? Because he's getting ignored. It's how he's slipping baseline for Greg Monroe to find him with a nifty pass. It's how he's going up when most guys in the NBA don't on that offensive rebound right below the corner of the backboard. All of those kinds of plays show his explosive athleticism, and he can finish around the rim, and that's fantastic. And I think, those cutters, we really haven't seen a lot of that cutting since Avery Bradley was a younger player. It even went away in Avery Bradley's later stages with the team. But I love watching that baseline cut, and it's great to see it back, and it's a nice camaraderie that he and Monroe have developed that, could continue to be a trick in the postseason here and there for the bench play.
Yeah, no, and that's absolutely true. And whether it's defensively, being a live wire, being, using his length, and he seems to mesh pretty well with these guys.
They like him, dude. They'd never give him those many opportunities in the offense if they didn't like him. You just made probably the most important point on this argument.
Yeah, and it's I don't know what it is, but it does seem like when they pass to Nader, it almost feels like they want to put their hands back out and pull the ball back sometimes. There's a real reticence to move the ball out there. So to him, and I can't say I doubt him. I doubt that decision. It's like, how do you get to a point where you can now, trust him? I feel like there's a lot of trust with this guy who feels like just showed up yesterday. Whereas right now, I don't think they have that trust in Nader. And, you read the comments of Brad Stevens, look, I don't have anything to do with that. He's saying, but I know he's looking good out there. To me, that's as much of an endorsement as you're going to get from Brad Stevens that Jabari Bird needs to be on my roster. He can't say, I want Nader gone. But I'll say I think that Nader should be gone.
I do too. But I don't even.
In there.
But Brad would never even think about it that way. Brad would look at it as, what's my playoff roster like? What do I need? Holy moly, do I need some guard play? I need some ball handlers. I need he needs Bird. He doesn't need another wing. Not in the postseason. Even Brown can slide over if they need to get more wings, right? I mean, they don't need it. They need guards. They're not going to have Marcus Smart. They're not going to have Kyrie Irving at the very beginning. And they're going to have Terry Rozier, and already they're gimmicky with the ball handling. I mean, even Monroe. How many times this week did Greg Monroe bring the ball up across half court? And I love it because, from the minute we signed him, I was a fan, and right. I loved his triple-double night this week. I loved how he was working with Bird. There was just a ton of fun in watching Monroe, and I think he's even found his love for the game again. I mean, I think that was one of the questions with the guy is he really committed to the game of basketball? But there's something infectious about this Celtics roster, and I just thought he would do well in it, and especially with Tice out, now he's getting lots of opportunities to show his stuff. He's perfect in his role on the bench, and if he's smart, he'll stay here instead of using it to leverage another contract somewhere else, because this is a perfect fit for him. This could be his career role.
Well, I think it speaks to the point guard depth right now, right? And the fact you lose Kyrie, you lose Smart. Now you're down to Rozier and Larkin. And of course, both had been Rozier with the ankle and then Larkin in the hospital a week ago with the flu. Not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. So both of those guys coming back to full strength, you're going to see that a lot less. And you're right. I mean, Monroe has looked good. Moose has done what Moose does.
He's playing the Horford role. I mean, it's just that Princeton-style offense, and so there's a lot of continuity in having him in that position when you're moving from the starting lineup to the bench unit.
I think so, and I think then it's great to see Rozier kind of standing up. He because he's not a playmaker, he's a scorer in that role. And by having Moose in there, and Horford. You have two bigs who you can rely upon to move the ball around a little bit more in high post situations.
And Tatum, to your point earlier.
Sure. But I guess by going back to the Rozier thing, Rozier is becoming a star. Rozier is looking, KD says he's a star. He's a starter. He should be starter quality point guard in the league. Somebody's going to want to break the bank for him. And I think that's why I kind of look at this summer as the time perhaps to move him, because you trade him when his value is at its highest. He's on a rookie contract. He's
going to be a starter in the postseason. If he lights it up, you're absolutely correct about that. But it's a tough loss, and to develop him to that point and then move him. But if you want to trade for a guy like Kawhi and you want to move a piece like Rozier, that's a different conversation for me than the Jaylen Brown one, because I do feel like Rozier's going to want the opportunity to be a starter, and presumably he's earned it. We'll definitely know if he carries this Celtics team to the second or even the second round or the finals, Eastern Conference Finals. If he's able to do that and contribute like he has in the past in the postseason, but on a greater level and a more consistent basis, night in and night out, he absolutely will have earned the opportunity to be a starting guard. And he'll never get that here. That's never going to happen here. Whereas Brown has earned the starting role and it's there. You trade for a guy like Kawhi and things get a little bunched up, and maybe Brown's not the starter, but even in a bench role it would still be okay. Or maybe, you can do a lot of nifty things with the way you decide to roll out that lineup anyway. So with that in mind, Rozier, to your point, would be a guy I would move, but it just wouldn't be enough, even with the picks.
Mm-hmm. No, I think the picks, Rozier and Brown, I think is the only way. And even then, there's some question whether you'd have to have Horford in there, because I don't know if you can make the deal work. Maybe you re-sign, there's a way you can re-sign Smart and include him in the deal and give him a bigger extension, but then the max of that could be 3 years. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues that come with trying to make a deal work with San Antonio and trying to make the money work. But there's probably a way to do it with Brown and Rozier at the head of it. But again, I know we talked about why there's issues with that. But going back to this, kind of bench issue, it's interesting to see what this team can do with their bench unit, and Moose being, you saw some, Baines and Horford kind of starting the game, obviously. And then they went to a two big lineup, which I think is kind of interesting, Monroe and Horford. I don't know if it will work, with the way the game is nowadays, but it's
a more traditional lineup, but there's ball movement, and one guy shoots a three and the other one gobbles up rebounds, and it could work in the postseason. So let's say we only have like 1 minute left, but just to close this one out, let's say you do a starting lineup of Horford and Monroe. You've obviously got Rozier, so is it as simple as Jaylen Brown and Tatum in that lineup, or do you want somebody like Mook in there?
I'd rather have Mook in there. I think Mook is invaluable right now. I don't like the way he stops the ball. I don't like the way.
So you rotate Tatum to the 2 and Mook at the 3, and then you go Horford and Monroe.
No, I think I think you keep Horford, Baines. Well, geez, you're right. Yeah,
no, you got to have Horford and Monroe. So you got playmaking, a little bit of shooting there, but. And you've got Terry, but it's almost like you almost want to go with Morris and Tatum and let Tatum kind of try to play the 2 somehow, just for all that spacing to play off.
It's true. No, you're right, because if you go too big, then but then you get Larkin in there. I guess Larkin would be your point guard in that situation. That would work. I think that's a fine lineup right there. I think that gets it done. And
it's just a question of whether or not Morris should be out there as a starter. But you know what? That's all the time we have. We've got to wrap the show. I will say I'm excited, even knowing we've got lots of bad news and not our 2 best players. I'm still very excited to see what happens in the postseason. I'm a big fan of watching young players play and develop. I love Terry Rozier, and his opportunity to do it on a big stage has really got me salivating. Plus, there's always Brown and Tatum, and then a whole cast of young guys, Ojale, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be a ton of fun. So next week, we're talking playoff basketball. That's going to do it. The broadcast will be available on demand on the CLNS Media mobile app. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at CSL_Justin and at CSL_Duke. A heartfelt thank you to everybody for tuning in. And remember that you can help support the show by subscribing to Celtics Stuff Live on iTunes and Stitcher. We'd love it if you gave us a rating and a review, because your feedback is important to the show. And for staff writer Samuel Elias, executive producer Larry H. Russell, the founder of CLNS Media, Nick Gelso, and my co-host John Duke, I'm Justin Poole, and thank you for listening to this week's edition of Celtics Stuff Live.
Celtics Stuff Live.